Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us today, guys. I have a very special guest here for our next video here for Riverside Podiatry. This is my friend and patient, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us, Alex. Now, aside from just being a really good bloke, Alex has come along today because he has done the unthinkable, in my estimation, and I'm sure in yours as well. So this is our segment, 10 minutes with 10 questions with a man who has ran 10 marathons in 10 days. Can you believe it? So for the first question, Alex, that I wanted to address to you, and I'm pretty sure it's the question on everybody's mind right now, is, are you crazy? And what I mean by that is, what is it that inspires you to run 10 marathons in 10 days?
Hey, I just really enjoy running. Mate, it's like meditation to me.
Right,
So
okay.
When the opportunity came to run 10 marathons in 10 days, I'm just like, oh, that's 10 days of meditation, of relaxing, of getting out in nature. So
Well, I can appreciate the idea of getting out in nature, but I believe that this was, in one sense, very meditative in the sense that you were running the same circuit, which was 3.5 kilometers or so, was it?
that's right.
And you just did that how many times per day?
12 times a day.
12 times a day, the same circuit. So I can imagine you would have gotten into at least a bit of a trance state, at least, somewhere along that way. And how did you actually go in the run?
So I ended up coming first.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you nailed 10 marathons in 10 days, and you came top of the list.
Yes, one of 4 people who finished.
One of 4. So
Yeah.
the very fact that you finished, well, in my estimation as well, is just huge. So congratulations on your win and just for completing it in the first place. So another question is, I wanted to know, how long had you been running marathons before you decided to try and attempt a casual 10 marathons in 10 days?
So my first marathon was in 2018,
Right.
and I'm just slowly building up from there. So 2019, my first ultra marathon. 2020 was a bit of a break with COVID, but then this year was like events are back up.
So for those who don't know, can you just explain what an ultra marathon is?
Yep, so marathon is 42.2 kilometers, and ultra marathon is anything above that. So it could be 50, 100 kilometers.
Right.
Yeah, multi-day race.
So your first ultra run, how far was that one?
That was a 50-kilometer race.
50-kilometer race. Okay, so just a mere 8Ks on a standard 42-kilometer race.
There's a lot more elevation, so they're
right.
a lot trickier with the ultras. A lot of them are on trails,
Right.
different tracks.
So the next question that I have for you is, why running and not, say, swimming or cycling or something that's a whole lot less impact on your feet day to day?
I'm actually a bit of a lazy exerciser. So
Really?
For me, running, you just put your shoes on, you head out the door, and out you go.
It feels to me.
Or get a bike.
Yeah, it feels to me like it's so ironic though that you would then want to go and run for 42 kilometers, which is just impact after impact and through all the joints in your body. But
Yep.
on that note, you also, before this, you came and saw us here at Riverside Podiatry. What was it that inspired you to want to see a podiatrist?
Well, after battering my body through a few marathons, I thought it was important just to check my toes.
Yes.
Maybe prevent something from happening, because my body was going fine. A lot of people say when you run the marathon, your body's going to hurt, your feet are going to be stuffed, and I didn't want that to happen.
Absolutely.
So I was trying to prevent making myself worse, especially with the races I had.
And I just want to put a side note in here for those of you who are watching. I've done some assessments on Alex here, and we've discovered that he has a unique anatomy. He has quite a high functional foot, putting it strictly, and he has the capacity to do these marathons without as much drama as perhaps the everyday bloke like myself, who would probably die after 12 kilometers. So in any case, don't just go and jump into it, is my point. Alex has done a lot of training, and he's put a lot of prep work into it. So that leads me to my next question is, what sort of preparation have you been doing to build up to running marathons in general? I mean, you said that before you did the 10 marathons in 10 days, you did some, ultra runs beforehand and some other marathons. But what prep did you do before that?
I think it's just running regularly. So nearly every day, every second day, I'm doing 5 to 10 kilometers. Weekends, I do a long run. I put in a bit of gym work in between. So it's just consistent training probably over 5-6 years now.
So you said that you did some just regular running, and you said a long run. What is a long run when you're training for a marathon? Is it a half marathon? Are you doing like a full marathon when you're doing a long run?
Yeah, so a long run would be on a Sunday, maybe 20 to 30 Ks.
20 to 30 Ks.
Sometimes even 40.
And I remember that you told me previously in one of our consultations that you just casually decided you were going to run from, where was it? It was Hornsby at your mother's place on one Sunday. It didn't work out, but you were going to run from Hornsby to Gosford, was it?
Yeah.
Just for kicks, right?
I was on Boxing Day after a big feast on Christmas Day. I was at home at Epping and, decided to maybe see how it feels to run to the Central Coast. Went up the Great North Walk and ended up at the Hawkesbury River.
So, I mean, it seems to me as that you don't have many of these, but what is it that's been the biggest barrier for you?
Oh, there's always mental barriers. I think there's days when you just, you've got to give your body a rest, and there's days when you don't want to train, and there's times when you need to get out and you just got to get moving. So
right.
I think the greatest barrier of any exercise is always mental.
Mental, yeah. And speaking of barriers and needing to give your body a rest, you were also telling me, because since your 10 marathons in 10 days, you've also done another ultra run in the Blue Mountains.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the standard 42 kilometres grueling marathon. It was undulating, and it was not only that, but it was 100 kilometres, I believe, was it?
Yeah.
And then not only that, but the day before you had played cricket, and it wasn't just any ordinary game of cricket. What had happened to you?
I think it was the first ball that struck me on my lower shin. So I walked in, 24 hours before a big run. I knew I shouldn't have played, but I did, and just my luck, it hit me on that spot.
And then you decided you were going to go ahead with the run anyway?
Yeah, I thought I have nothing to lose. I'll give it a crack. If it was going to hurt too much, I'll pull out. But yeah, ended up going all right and ended up finishing.
You finished it, which I think there was a number of people that didn't, you were saying as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was very cold, and so that affected a lot of people, but maybe that was actually good to numb. Ice my shin for the whole run.
Yeah, right. So just side note for the viewers, if you have injured yourself and you're wondering whether or not you should do a 100-kilometre run the following day, probably best to get in touch with us. So give us a call, the number will come up on the screen, or you can book online for an assessment. But yeah, just don't necessarily grin and bear with it, as Alex has done, even though he survived very well and there was no complications. Sometimes it doesn't work out so well, so don't necessarily push it quite so hard. Now back to our questions. We're moving on to some other runs that are coming up into the future. You've also said there's another run coming up in Smiths Lake, was it? Or somewhere up in around Mile Lakes?
Yeah, so Mile Lakes in July.
And so that's in July. And how long's that one?
That's another 100
Another 100 kilometres,
Yep.
yeah. And there's something that makes that one a little bit different, isn't there? Something that particularly thrills you. But just with me, it scares me, the whole concept. And the difference is?
There's about over 30 kilometres of sand.
30 kilometres of sand running. Right.
Yeah.
So not enough for you to just run a standard 100 kilometres or a standard 42 kilometres. You've got to go and do it on sand. Why is it that excites you so much?
I love running on sand. I've lived next to the beach for a while. Past time in Thailand, and yeah, sand running is one of my very nostalgic for me. So I really enjoy it.
Nostalgia. Okay, well that's one thing that could perhaps motivate you, I guess, which is good. So, what are your long-term goals? Are you wanting to break the 100 club? I think you were telling me about your closest competitor with your 10 marathons in 10 days. The closest competitor who was more fresh because he had only done 9 in the 10 days, but you managed to beat him in by 15 minutes or so. But he was for part of the 100 club, you said?
Yeah.
So is this one of your goals?
Not yet. I think my long-term goal is to always just stay injury-free.
Yeah,
when I'm older, I just want to be fit, be able to exercise, and I don't really have concrete goals of joining clubs or how many marathons, but just to stay fit and happy.
So how many, out of curiosity on the side note, how many have you achieved thus far marathons wise?
I think I've done close to 25 marathons and ultra marathons.
So you're about a quarter of the way there. You've only been going since
I'm an amateur. I'm an amateur. I'm running next to some of these veterans.
An amateur, wow. Yeah. Well, you're doing exceptionally well, might I say. So next questions. I'm curious to know, and some of our viewers will be as well, if they're interested in getting into marathon runs. Give us a rundown of the equipment. Are you using compression socks? Are you using cotton socks or bamboo socks? Are you using a certain type of shoe? How often are you changing your shoes? I know there's a lot jammed into that question, but try and narrow it down into a couple of things as far as your equipment, which obviously footwear and socks is pretty critical, that you've decided to use, and on what basis? shoes and socks wise?
So with the shoes, you know, when I first started running, I got my feet measured, you know, saw you and understood my feet.
Saw a podiatrist.
Yeah, saw a podiatrist. Understood I had very wide feet. So I'm very specific in making sure I have shoes that do have a wide version,
Mm-hmm.
which have a really good toe box, so then I don't have the blisters and that rubbing against myself, and it's comfortable. So
Yes.
running the marathons, I end up having no issues.
No issues, yeah.
So I think getting the right shoes is really important. I probably have
Absolutely.
3 or 4 shoes, which are my go-to for roads and trails, and I just stick with them. With socks, I think, you know, sweating can be a really big issue. So I want to always get, you know, really good socks, which don't get wet and soggy.
Absolutely right. So just a natural fibered sort of a cotton sock or something like that.
Yeah, natural fiber, cotton. You know, the brands I specifically use are, you know, 2XU or Features.
Yep.
You know, they work for me.
Yeah, great. So, just side note on that, one of the common problems that we see with marathon runners that do actually make the time to come and visit us in here at Riverside Podiatry is the bruising that comes underneath the nails. So what Alex mentioned there about the toe box is absolutely critical. Give yourself enough space in the toe so that you're not going to be jamming those little nails up and causing a world of problems. And Alex has fortunately prevented a lot of those by coming and seeing us on a semi-regular basis in and around his runs. And the natural fibered socks, absolutely critical if you're looking to get into it. If you're unsure and wanting to know a bit more information about what kind of shoes would suit your particular feet, I would suggest, especially if you're considering a 10 marathons in 10 days kind of an enterprise, it would be worth getting in touch with us. So once again, that number will be on the screen, and you will also be able to get in touch with us through our website, riversidepodiatry.com.au. A couple more quick questions before we wind this interview up.
Yeah.
Do you have any foot problems, or have you had any ongoing foot problems since starting your marathon runs?
No, I've been really lucky. You know, I haven't had any ongoing issues. I guess I try to prevent a lot of issues. You know, probably the week before a race, I'll kind of pop in and tell you my crazy idea,
Yes.
get the nails filed. But yeah, I do what I can to prevent injuries. You know, if I start feeling a niggle, you know, I'll see someone about it.
Yeah.
Have a rest, have a break.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be out of action for a long period of time.
Absolutely. Early intervention is absolutely key, and I would encourage our viewers once again, early intervention, like Alex said, coming in here to make sure that his nails are being looked after if he needs to be before the race, to make sure that there's nothing that's going to be causing a problem throughout. We've also talked about blisters, which is also a very common one, so really important to get the right fit of a shoe. If your feet are suffering under the weight of blisters on a regular basis, it's worth talking to us to get the right kind of fit, making sure the laces are done appropriately and things like that. We can talk you through that process. And one final question, this is the big one, the haymaker, question number 10. The question is, what is the best advice you can give to somebody that's interested in getting into marathon, ultra marathons, or 10 marathons in 10 days kinds of caliber?
I think I've got 3 pieces of advice.
Oh, 3 pieces we're looking after today.
So the first is just to start slow, make it enjoyable. You know, the second one is you got to know you start to learn about your body,
Yeah.
your heart rate, your feet, your breathing, your diet, and I guess the third one is just to run your own race. You know, go at your own pace. Make sure you're listening to your own body. You rest when you need to. You know, it's not a competition.
Okay, so those 3 pieces of advice were?
Start slow and
Yep.
enjoy it.
Yep.
2 is to know your body. And 3 is to run your own race.
Run your own race. Very important, very wise words. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and see us here, Alex. If you are interested in getting into marathons, ultra runs, or anything even more crazy than that, then do please get in touch with us. It's not worth going 20 odd Ks and pulling out like so many did with the Blue Mountains run, unfortunately, or other marathons. It's worth getting an assessment, worth getting your feet looked at. Not everybody has the unique marathon running anatomy that Alex does. So get in touch with us and we will help you through the process of preparing for your marathons, your ultra runs, or your 10 marathons in 10 days. So thanks, guys. Our number will come up on the screen there, 0243239100, and our website, www.riversidepodiatry.com.au, and you can book online through that website. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.